Hello, my name's Rob. I'm the rector of Portishead. I don't know if people are angrier today than they used to be, but they certainly seem to have different avenues, different ways of expressing that anger. If you have a presence on social media, on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you will know how angry people can get on those platforms. Or indeed say things that they later regret. So a couple of stories been in the news in the last couple of days, both about sport. One is about people's response to the England footballers deciding that they're going to take the knee before their Euro matches. People have got very exercised about that. And another story from cricket, an England cricketer who played very well in the last test, Ollie Robinson. It came to light that he wrote some texts, some tweets nearly 10 years ago in which he expressed both racist and sexist opinions, and he has been suspended because of it. Or more locally, it seems looking on Facebook that anytime anybody refers to the rewilding process that's been in place in North Somerset and in Portishead in the last few months, people get very cross about the planting of trees in different places. Any reference to seems to let go a wave of people who are really very cross about that indeed. Well, we do as human beings seem to get angry. If those things don't make you angry, perhaps other things do. Jesus, of course, had something to say about anger, and our reading today, the reading set for today, is from Matthew 5, verses 20 to 26, right in the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus says this: "For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, 'You shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment.' But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment. And if you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. And if you say, 'You fool,' you will be liable to the hell of fire. So when you're offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are on the way to court with him, or your accuser may hand you over to the judge and the judge to the guard, and you will be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny." Jesus does what he does in a few cases here on the Sermon on the Mount. He cites a law from the Old Testament here, one of the Ten Commandments, "Thou shalt not murder." And then he says, well, you've heard that this was said, but I say to you, you've heard this, but actually I say that the rule should be a little bit tighter, a little bit harder. You've heard that it was said, "Do not murder." Well, I say to you, don't get angry. Don't call your brother or your sister a fool. It's almost the same thing, he says. Gosh, sounds quite harsh, doesn't it? And then he says, do you know, these things matter. It matters more than worship. If you're on your way to worship and you remember that your brother or your sister has something against you, well, go and sort it out. Sort it out first. And then he says, certainly don't let an issue like that get to court. Sort it out. Make sure that you are reconciled. It's important, isn't it? But how do we do that? How do we make people who are angry? Well, those of us who are involved in the Living in Love and Faith Lent course will remember that in the last session, as we looked at issues of gender, sexuality and identity and relationships. In the last session, there was a question which said, what's the best point that those who disagree with you have? It's a really, really good question. Because so we think that we understand people who disagree with us. We tell a story about them, which is very simplistic, which leaves them as fools, really, for disagreeing, for not agreeing with us, whatever that may be about, whether it's about issues of sexuality and identity, whether it's about Brexit, whether it's about race and taking the knee before a football match. We think that we know, we understand the people who disagree with us. But actually, when we try and inhabit their world, when we think about why they think as we do, well, it won't make us agree with them, probably, but it will help us to understand them a little, to realise that their position is a little more complex and a little more nuanced than perhaps we thought it was. And that's really important for us in the church, isn't it? Because the church is a place that's made up of people who are different. That's part of it. It's very identity. We don't all agree. We shouldn't all agree about everything. But we need to disagree well, to not allow one another to make us angry. But rather, if we seek to understand why people think what they do, to get to know them, to find out about them, then actually we become a place where we do disagree well, where we love one another. And that, for me, is a church that I want to be a part of.